Let me tell you a story. It's about reality shifters. Reality shifters belong to an advanced civilization here on planet Earth. But that advanced civilization is long gone. The last golden age was harshly deconstructed by the arrival of the patriarchal age that began 13,000 years ago. These reality shifters perfected their craft in the ancient Egyptian school of mystic art and science. But with the patriarchal rebellion, most, near all teachings from the ancient Egyptian mystic school for art and science has been removed, rebuked, relinquished, abolished, leaving people with no real sense of reality, no gift to be able to decode reality. And the decoders of the new reality within the patriarchal age would be an elite group known as the Masons. And they're quite an old group, and there's different names throughout the centuries, different types of people coming and going, different types of eras and ages of experience. But they understand consciousness, and they understand reality. The reality shifters are a small group of people who manage to remember what they knew in ancient Egypt, and they're very rare. Most of them have been stripped of their advanced technology that is within the human brain, just by being alive in this world. But these reality shifters somehow represent the glitch in the system, a systematic hold that was created long ago to keep people unaware of true reality. Reality that is consciousness. Consciousness, enlightenment, many words, but the same thing. An ability to shift your own reality through having a key. And nearly everyone does not know how to shift the reality, except these rare people that somehow were able to remember their ancient Egyptian ancestral knowledge that is only given to them because long ago, thousands of years ago, their great-grandparents were high priestesses and high priests within the ancient Egyptian mystic school for art and science. Of course, these reality shifters do not know that. Too many things have occurred since then. So much has happened. But they do remember within the deeper DNA, beyond the deconstruction and reconstruction of the DNA that has occurred due to much interference. And these reality shifters, they live in plain sight, yet they have something peculiar, something extraordinary about their appearance. They all seem to have this shared technology, the technology of knowing how to open energy. And this energy is nothing to do outside, it's internal. It's a projection. It's knowing reality. It's thoughts. It's the brain wavelength. It's knowing how to access the different parts of the brain through your own will, through your own meditation. They know how to do it. It's though they know their own brain. And they say humans only access maybe 10%, but these beings, they know how to enter into these very deep like trance states to connect to the earth in ways that hasn't been seen or heard for thousands of years. These people have psychic gifts that all their ancestors have had, except it's awakening in them because it's time to rebuild what has been lost for 12,500 years. But these reality shifters are bringing opposition to the Lucifer rebellion, which has been in rulership for many centuries. Lucifer rebellion, which is a kind of group within the patriarchal group that is against the awakening of humanity. Lucifer rebellion sees humanity in ways of slavery and taking advantage of deceit, betrayal. These lower vibrations that have been interfering with the natural process of humanity for some time. But the reality shifters are awakening, and there's only a few right now, because there's only a few surviving within the bloodline connected to ancient Egypt before the first pharaohs of Egypt. And these bloodlines in ancient Egypt are connected to Atlantis, and also connected to Lemuria, and also connected to Pleiades. And these beings are rare, again, very rare, but they're awakening and starting to develop their psychic gifts after many centuries of their ancestors being ridiculed and being discredited, attacked, removed. They have survived. They were protected by the ancestors. And these reality shifters, they hold a key to accessing the deeper states of consciousness for humanity to reawaken to reality beyond fear, shame, doubt, the common binds, systematic hold that keeps people away from we can call human remembrance. See, most people live in an amnesia. Yes, they live in their reality, but they do not really know. They do not really discover or really have the knowledge within. There's seeking, there's searching, there's obtaining, there's gaining, but there's no real sense of depth within the consciousness, or even access to their own consciousness, though they're blocked to their own consciousness. They can take in information, they can cognitively think, they can sort of regurgitate information back out. They can analog, they can categorize, put things in boxes, but there's no real consciousness in the way of manifesting through one's own mind. And that is what the reality shifters have come to teach. The reality shifters, through their very experience that they offer, a real sensible practical experience, they're able to unlock that deeper mind. The deeper mind that hasn't been connected to for thousands of years. And they're awakening that. You can consider them psychologists, therapists, in the way that they work directly with a sort of hypnotherapy. And yet their expression of that is different. Some is through sound, some is through art, some is through actual guided meditation. Others, it's through science. But the reality shifters pose a threat to what has been going on for a long time and what has been resistant to the awakening of human beings and the full remembrance of where humans come from, what humans are capable of, and the kind of advanced civilization that occurred long ago. Because in remembering, human beings would be able to take back the power and no longer feed into something that is creating a misappropriation with reality. But in order to really sustain that space in the deeper mind, there has to be releasing of the fear and doubt and shame. The reality shifters, they present a sort of experience in doing that they call the expansion. And basically what they do is they offer a challenge to the human existence, a challenge that is both uncomfortable and yet so liberating. And it can be subtle, can be simple, it can be seeming radical, but it has to do with unblocking the human creative intelligence by setting human beings on a path of creative thinking, creative problem solving, and just overall creative expression, by placing human beings in these sort of places in which human beings are going to be forced to step out of their comfort zone, or give them intention, seed ideas in the mind that are going to only be nurtured or cared for and only sprout into existence when human beings develop their own mind. They're going into life and not just being mediocre, complacent, or mundane, but actually exalting themselves through their own self-initiation. You can call these reality shifters like powerhouses. Powerhouses of energy that give people a catapult into a complete new understanding of themselves and of what this earth is all about. So the reality shifters, they are told by an elder, a very old person, a woman from South America, who is 120 years old in a very small tribe within Peru, seen as the wisest of the tribe. And she tells these reality shifters who spontaneously arrive at this tribe, given the same vision, a vision of this woman in Peru, even given the name of the tribe, a name that hasn't been shared with outsiders ever. And they all arrive there, four of them. Reality shifter that is considered the artist, the sound creator, the scientist, and the teacher. And they all arrive, and they receive the vision from a woman, a very small woman. And she barely speaks English, barely speaks the languages that they know. She speaks a unique language. It's not Spanish, it's a different language. It's belonging to an ancient-rooted language that she only speaks with them because the language itself is like a light code. It's a language that she calls the Hebrew, but it's before what we think of Hebrew. And yet, she shares it with them, and somehow they understand it without needing to really understand word for word, as though they can feel, intuit, and sense what she's saying. And she tells them about revealing the reality to everyone, the reality of the mind, the awakening of the mind, so humanity can start to see beyond the interference that has become one big magic show. Great Wizard of Oz, as she liked to say, this great elder woman that's name is Ngula. It's like a great magic show, and the great Wizard of Oz is the charlatan who presents this beautiful projection of something that isn't real. It doesn't really give a real connection to the mind. As though many people understand, or they have the wisdom from the ancient schools long ago, but don't really have the experience of it. Because in order to have the experience of the wisdom, you have to be welcomed by Mother Earth. And only those of love and compassion are welcomed by Mother Earth into the experience of the wisdom. She gives them an experience. She shows them the advanced civilization within ancient Egypt and Atlantis before great interference. And she shows them the reality in the mind, which is an ability to create reality, to manifest. And this manifestation sort of practice and teaching is very unique. The indigenous people use it and have understanding of it. The Pleiadians do as well. And this is an ability to learn what creative reality is. Creative reality from the perspective of the soul energy, the life force, the Merkaba, which is simply this luminous kind of sacred geometry that every human being has. And the sacred geometry is basically a bunch of codes, a bunch of angles, a bunch of lines and shapes that if you organize them accordingly, you can sort of create something, a projection that you can project onto reality, and not just alter your own sort of state of what you're seeing. You can actually create a tangible sort of shift in the geometry of the surrounding area that includes people, places, things. And she shows them the kind of sacred geometry that is the kind of science and art of reality, and how nobody can see sacred geometry. It's invisible to many. Even when it's so obvious in plants and the fractals in the trees, people still can't see it, because in order to see it, you would have to access the deeper mind. The deeper mind would have to be used. It would have to be on. And for many, it is not. So they cannot see the sacred geometry. They cannot see the different patterns, shapes, forms, lines, angles. And therefore, they cannot recreate the ones that are actually going to bring energy in the form of different configurations that unlock different teachings within the self and within understanding. And she shows them the sacred geometry, the basic form, the tree of life, within the flower of life, a very simple patterning. And then she shows them the unfolding into more complex forms. She shows them the messages that were sent to Earth from Pleiadians, Orions, Lyrans, Sirians, Arcturians, deer beings, the Numo beings, dolphin people, that have left these sort of symbols behind. We can call them as crop circles, we can call them as signatures, call them as frequencies. But within them, there's these messages that are kind of decoded through the understanding of the sacred geometry, which is both art and science. And only in the deeper mind can you be able to understand its language. It's a unique cosmic language that hasn't been understood for thousands of years because of the patriarchal interruption that has happened to the ancient civilization. As the ancient civilization came to a close, the fall of consciousness came, and humanity, forgot how to understand, how to sense this language, which is the only sort of key to remembering the ancient civilization. And these reality shifters asked this elder woman, Gula, why is it so important that they remember now in such haste and in such accelerated growth? And she says, because humanity can enter into a technology age, and without the sense of the sacred geometry, the technology age can completely damage the geometric structure of the earth. So much so that it cannot be repaired or even replicated. And that means for humanity will not be able to live on this earth. And the reality shifters question about where the future is going, as everybody wonders the future of technology, the future of civilization. And Gula speaks of the future being one that must be created, and that there are two sort of futures happening simultaneously that seem to be in opposition with each other. That of sort of advanced technology but has no human development of consciousness, or there's the sort of advancement of the human consciousness and the unlocking of the sacred geometry of the earth, which will kind of flush out, filter out, and clean out the interference that is still ongoing. So the reality shifters, what they must do is they must travel to particular locations across this planet, locations that were created long ago by the ancient Egyptians, even Atlanteans, as special places within the geometric structure of Earth. Vortexes of high vibration. Vortexes that, when they're simulated like meridians in the body, can unleash an energy and can even unblock the energy. And they go to these particular places. Some places are remote, some places are sacred, some places are hidden, some places are not easy to get to. And they go to these places. And what they do is they create the symbol. There's a particular sacred geometry symbol. It is the tree of life. And they create these symbols. And they create it in a very profound way, seeding this in the earth, seeding it in the earth to sort of chiropract the energy of the earth, to kind of reset the Merkaba of the earth, to give humanity a chance at entering to a technology age without losing their roots with the earth, and over time being so imbalanced that humanity cannot bring back or recreate or repair the damages that are done due to interference within the own mind. And the reality shifters are the first wave. They must awaken these younger kids that are actually beings that have come from other places in the galaxy and outside the galaxy, known as star children. And star children, they are here particularly because they already have the knowledge within their own consciousness. It's just they have no access to it. So as though they're living in a sort of coma or sort of hallucination or a sleep in which they don't really know what from what. They don't really know if it's created by them or it's created by an outside source. They don't know where they are, what they're doing, why they chose this, why that's happening. in order for them to steadily sort of retrieve and retain the knowledge from their star place of origin, they will need the earth to reset itself. And in resetting itself, it'll also wash out the old system. And washing out the old system will help to prepare Earth for what the star children have come to do. Called forth by Mother Gaia, they are assigned to recreate the advanced civilization that is before, long before. This advanced civilization will create reality that has consciousness. But it's nothing outside, it's not external, it's something within the human brain. It's a shift, it's a reset within the human brain that must occur. Because if the human brain doesn't have a reset and doesn't start to evolve itself, and because humanity is forcing the technology age in many ways to go faster than what humans are kind of ready for, the earth and humanity will have a split. When that split occurs, humanity cannot live on earth. So humanity is steadily somewhat splitting, and the reality shifters can sense it. And once completely uprooted, there's no nutrients, there's no connection, there's no life to be had on this earth, for humans at least. So the reality shifters, they go to all these places, and around these places are particular groups of people. It could be indigenous people, could be tribes, it could be city people, it could be different ethnicities of Russian people or Afghanistan people or Canadian people. And strangely, the people around these areas are highly gifted, and yet they don't even know it. But with the chiropractic of the energy, all of a sudden these people start to step more fully into their gifts, their psychic abilities, and start to clear out the interference, which is like traps in the mind, barriers in the mind, boxes in the mind, distracting the mind, and start to feel into the earth, start to feel into their creation, their creativity. Start to create from a place of knowing the self, discovering the self, clarifying the self. As though all these people around these sacred sites were drawn there unconsciously because they know that there's something in them given to them by their ancestors that makes them special, that makes them a part of this ancient civilization, as though they're old souls, guided there because they know in the deepest part of themselves is like a magnet, and they have the proper magnetism to be drawn to it. So with the shifting of the planet and the resetting of it, what happens in the movement is there's somewhat of a veil that gets thin around the earth, something that has never been seen or experienced ever for thousands of years. And what happens is all of a sudden, in a great moment, it's a single day, really, a single night, where all of a sudden there's sort of configurations, constellations within the night sky that had this sort of geometric performance. with each other, almost like there's these lines of angles, these sacred geometry forms that occur all across the planet that can't be described but only experienced. It's like a light show, like Northern Lights, but it's not. It's not glowing, it's not any particular colors, it's seeing into, it's almost like seeing into memories of what humans knew or know deep within the mind. Its ability to see into the universe as though seeing into the mind from a nighttime view, and see the creative thinking that is able to manifest what one is needing to in order to create an earth and humanity that knows its consciousness.